FY23 C request workshop. This is geared towards Q3, Q4, and end of year discussions and topics. So the first thing that we're going to talk about right now is our PR submission dates. This is our agenda for the training session today. We'll try to cover as much as we can through here. A lot of this stuff we usually do bake into previous training sessions. So if we do have to skip over a few things, please do know that we have covered a lot of these topics, and I'll be prioritizing topics that are more relevant to this session. So these PR submission dates are available on the Enterprise Services portal. I'll show you how to navigate to that, but everything in here, it has been published since earlier this calendar year in January. Right now, the big thing is that the final PR cutoff date for all new work is going to be August 11th. There are obviously some PRs that will need to be processed after that, or maybe there's some sort of system error or issue that pops up. This happens all the time, but we do ask that we try as hard as possible to submit or to kind of honor this PR cutoff date. Right now, for Enterprise Services, we are experiencing the most volume that we've ever had for this time of year. We're processing currently, close to 400 actions right now. On this table below, we kind of have a different, we have these different categories for PR submissions depending on your dollar value or the type of procurement that it falls under. We can see here that we've already passed a couple dates, depending on what the procurement was. So please, if you have any questions, navigate to this page. The link I will provide in the chat. However, let's take a second to talk about the Enterprise Services portal. The way that Enterprise Services has kind of gone about structuring the portal is to try and do a one-stop shop, sort of a search function. So what we've tried to do is make this similar to sort of a Google type system. Let's see if it'll work for me right now. So once I've connected and logged on to the Enterprise Services portal, if I don't really know exactly what I'm looking for, I can use the search function. This is also how you can submit tickets as well for acquisition services. We also provide HR and IT for certain customers. But for right now, let's talk about trying to navigate to the PR submission dates. So this is from the home screen, but the search bar is available at any other screen. I'll just type in PR submission, and all the results will load. And right here, I can see PR submission dates for FY23 purchase requests. I'll click on this knowledge article, which has been cataloged. And over to the right side, you can see that the attachment is there. So you can actually download this into PDF form. And there's a lot of information here that is available. So that's one way to go about this. I also use the search function to navigate to like any C request or C reward training that we've done. So I'll do C request training. And we can see here that we've got our ESA C request guide, which is a quick reference guide, and then C request training videos. And I think I even saw C request certification and authorization forms right here. So as some of you know, or most of you should probably know, the OAM has restructured their their acquisition system account reauthorization or recertification form. So now it's that exercise is going to be performed twice a year. So previously it was once a year. Now it's going to be from June, and then the next date will be in December. So most of you all have submitted your recertifications, which is great. If you don't submit your recertification within that time, you would just need to submit a new authorization form. But for example, I'll go ahead and click on this, and it will navigate me here. You can download this attachment. Again, it's on the right side. You can also subscribe to this, and you'll be able to see that pop up a little bit easier, as well as the C-Request quick reference guide. Let me add the dot there. It will populate as a PDF. Any questions about the portal? All right. If you have any questions, please just post it in the chat or raise your hand. So the next thing we're going to do, just a quick overview of Comprizon. I feel like most of the folks here have been using the system for quite a while. There are probably some new folks out there. I'll do my best to kind of make it useful for everybody to go through this topic. So here's the homepage of C-Request. I've just logged in, and please note that this is the test system. So there are several options here that a normal requisitioner user would not have. So from your homepage, all of your menu options are going to be on the left side of the screen. And everything that you are trying to do or, I guess, navigate to could be from here. So, for example, under this create menu, you can create a new requisition. You have some search capabilities as well. I think most of us will probably not have system options. At the center of your page, we have the Just In tab, the Hot List tab, Recently Accessed tab, your Worksheet tab, and then alerts and messages. So just kind of going through each one, your Just In tab is going to exist only for new documents that are signed to you. In C-Request, this is not a typical function that you might have. It's few and far between, but it does happen. So if a supervisor, or if you request a requisition be assigned to you, to your profile, it will populate in here first. Your hot list is just a list of your bookmarked documents. So anything that you want to add to your hot list will just show up here, and you can manage it by clicking onto the hot list tab. You can mark and remove it from the hot list. You can add things to your hot list, which I'll demonstrate in a second. The next tab is recently accessed. This will be any documents open within the last 30 days. And your worksheet contains your entire catalog of all documents that you have throughout your time using C-Suite. So if you have been in the system for 10 plus years, every requisition or every document that you've ever worked on will be in your worksheet. We have several search functions for you to be able to kind of parse out things that you are working on. So for example, my default search settings are set to search by date, fiscal year. You can also change it to the create date, the delivery date. I've chosen FY23, and specifically for requisitions, you probably won't have any of these options except for requisitions. If I clear this search field and press search, notice that all of these drop downs are blank except for the document view, which is all. Everything in my catalog will appear, so it displays 1 out of 50, 1 through 50 of 312 documents. And as you can see, some of these dating back to FY15 or previous. If I search for a requisition number, so for example, under this line, the search by document, if I click any of these, this drop down for contains will auto populate, but you could also type in begins with or equals if you know exactly what it is. But for most of us, contains is probably the most useful thing, because if we are not sure of every single character, in our requisition, we can use contains, and that'll allow us to search for something like, I'm not sure what number it is, but I know it's an OAM document, and I can search for it here. Most of us will only have one option here, but this is also useful to know in case you're using procurement search. This probably only applies to cores or folks who are kind of managing other, maybe if you're a TPOC for a certain procurement. I can also save this search. I can set this as the default search that will always populate like this. So if I navigate back to my worksheet, notice that this will now appear. And if I want to clear it and search for something and do something else, for example, maybe I want to see all unsubmitted or yeah, I'll do all unsubmitted requisitions. I can set this as my default search. Now, every time I navigate to my worksheet, I can see the worksheet will automatically populate with everything that has this procurement status of unsubmitted. And this is all defined from these drop downs here. So in your worksheet, you can take the time to kind of mess with this search function, whatever fits or works best for you. Do you have any questions about the different tabs on your home screen? Great. So let's navigate to our actual requisition creation. So from the home screen on the main menu side, underneath Create, I'm going to click Requisition. And this will take me to the requisition pin and name screen. Depending on your office, we have mapped certain pins. So for example, right now I am in this office, so I have the this numbering mask. I believe in C-Suite, all the requisitions have 14 character length pins. So for right now, I'm just going to leave this alone. I'm going to leave this as FY23. This is the counter code that is automatically populated. The document name will automatically take whatever is in here by default, but I could change this to funding requisition for right now. And I'll press save. So as you can see, we automatically had this counter code created. This means that this is just the highest available number or the next available number. Once I create that requisition, I'm going to be taken to the requisition administration screen. If we are unfamiliar with this page, this is pretty much consistent across all of C-Suite. Everything in the center of the page are things that you can kind of take action to fill out. Everything on your left side of the screen, as we said before, is going to be different navigation areas that you can go to. For right now, we're going to stay on this administration screen. I'm going to fill this out very quickly just to give you kind of an example of certain things, certain fields that are commonly asked about. So anything with an asterisk is a required field. That means that the system will not allow you to go on until any of these fields are filled out. At the top of the screen, you'll see that we had a red error message. This means that this is a system-generated error message, which is different than a finance error, which is usually in a different screen or different field. So if you are ever lost, or if you're unable to save something or unable to move on, make sure that you're checking out the top of your screen just to make sure that you don't have these red error messages. So I'll quickly fill out these fields. Just to mention the CBOT number. So CBOT has since been replaced by Prism AAP. There's I think a daily or weekly extract from Prism AAP. So any code that gets input into Prism AAP will then flow into C-Suite. So just know that anywhere where it says CBOT number, that's really just the advanced acquisition planning number that is being used. Formerly, it was I think it was FAPS for a long time, Forecasting and Advanced Acquisition Planning System. I think it switched to another system, and then CBOT was used for a year, and then now it's Prism AAP. If you are unsure of any sort of number or any field or anything that is, selectable within any of these fields in C-Suite, look for the magnifying glass. If you click on that, a pop-up will appear. Hopefully you all can see this. With the search function, like let's say I'm not sure of the number, but I know the description. Let's try trees or IT. You can type in the description, or you can type in a number, and you can select from that code, or you can select from the available results from this search. You can also copy this code and input it into that actual field. So for example, I could do this. And if I refresh it, that code is going to populate. Likewise, I could have just done, I could have selected using this checkbox, and it will populate in that field. I'll do the same thing as an example just for the UNSPSC code. I'm not really sure what exactly I need, but let's say I know that the title has something to do with, let's say, networking. I'll press search. All of my options here have populated down below. So I'll go ahead and select this one. And as we all know, the FSC code is tied to this unspec. And so these codes have populated. The purpose will be funding network software and so once I filled out this page, I'll navigate to the next tab. Right now I'm on the funding tab. Here's where we designate our bona fide needs certifier and the fund certifying officer. Depending on your organization, you'll probably have a flow chart of who you need to send it to, but per the OEM internal routing review and approval process, you do need to designate a bona fide needs certifier and a fund certifying officer. So at the bare minimum, we need to make sure that these two fields are filled out. And again, there are search functions here. If you are unsure of who to select, please just click that. You'll see from your office by default the available people to select. And you can also define by authority type. So let's say I'm searching for a fund certifying officer. Here's all my available FCOs. So this authority type is available for you to change. And I believe, I'm not sure if this is corrected in the production environment because this is test, but it might be contract administrator. It stands for BFNC. If that is still the case, then we'll just make that change. If you do know who your BFNC and your FCO are, you do have the ability to type that person out. So for example, I'll type in Julian Wilson. However, when you type it out, please make sure that you're not adding any spaces at the end, or you're not abbreviating the name, because this text field is going to be tied to a specific user profile. Those BFNC and FCO user accounts are actually in the system, and for the approval process to go through correctly, this field needs to map to a different selection that we'll discuss later on. So for right now, I'll type in a few folks. And I've confirmed that these folks are available as mapped users. Julian Wilson test. So had I not included this test account name here, that makes a big difference. I believe that in the production environment, these symbols are no longer mandatory, or at least main account and sub account are no longer mandatory. I'll hit apply. Okay, so In the requisition administration screen, I'm going to navigate to addresses, and here's our big first new change. Previously, these two fields were known as, let me actually pull this one up in production. Currently, these fields in C-Suite are the ultimate destination and the contracting office fields. After some discussion within the FCC DSB, as well as with the BAS change control and migration boards, we have decided to rename those fields the payment office and the invoicing office. The reason behind that is most of the time we don't really have an ultimate destination, or the ultimate destination is the same as the deliver to field. If you do have an ultimate destination field, or if you were using this field for, like, let's say, the delivery of supplies or a service or something like that, you can always add that into the supplemental address information. But the reason behind this change is so that when we migrate these awards from, or these documents from Comprise and Suite into BAS Prism, we need these fields to be filled out in C-Suite. And so right now, this is our avenue to do that. So for most of us, contracting office, this is going to be pretty self-explanatory. You'll know who it's going to. If you are operating in the Office of the Secretary system, it's either FirstNet or Enterprise Services, and I don't believe there are any FirstNet folks on here. Maybe some NTIA folks, maybe directed to FirstNet Acquisition Office, but by and large, this field usually ends up staying blank anyways. So this is the decision that we've kind of gone forth. Hopefully that makes sense. I feel like most of us are able to provide this information, the invoicing office and the payment office. These are two fields that exist in Prism at the time of obligation and part of the commitment process. And these two fields need to be mapped correctly when we're doing the migration, when we're performing migration. Does anybody have questions about that? About these two fields? Yes. Vivian, I see your hand.
Hi, yes, I was just a little confused. With these fields, it looks like it's okay if they're all the same, right? I mean, that's very possible that they could all end up in the same location. Although I noticed the invoicing office is different, even though this is a test example, the invoicing office was different than, say, the purchase for and deliver to fields.
So the invoicing office is usually the finance office. So for let's say if you are if NIST Financial is the one who manages your financial accounts, your budget. If your budget office goes through NIST, you would probably use NIST FSG as your code. And then the payment office might be, who you're invoicing it to, maybe your direct office or something like that. Does that make sense? It could be the same. It could be the same office, but typically when we get this information, when we have to fill this out on the C award side, I mean, the invoicing office is usually whatever finance, whatever accounts payable office. Like if you're at NOAA, if you're BIS, it's probably NOAA. If you're a census customer, it would be through census, et cetera, et cetera. Hopefully that answers your question.
I think so. And for purchase for and deliver to, are those usually the same, entity that's going to receive the services?
Yeah, so I mean, purchase for, this could be your specific own office, and then let's say if you're delivering to a different office or a different address, I mean, it depends on whatever information you would like to provide. I know, for example, if you're in FEQ, you could be purchasing this for the FEQ office, but it could be going to a different office, within HCHB or something like that, just as an example.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yep. I saw Brenda, your hand.
Hey there, I just want a basic understanding so it's right in my mind. Okay, so we create BAS Prism documents for any acquisition that's 250K plus. We put that inside of the field, I forget what it is just now.
Are you talking about the AAP
Yeah,
number?
the CBOT, yeah, the
Yes.
AAP number. Okay, so you just said something interesting. You said on for those two fields or for the entire sheet on the next form on the funding tab under the address tab, yeah.
Yeah.
You said that information is going to be migrated into the BAS Prism. So is that extra data? What exactly is being migrated? Is the whole document or just these particular fields? Because I'm trying to
So
wonder. Go ahead.
it's all awards. So when we migrate from BAS, all awards that are active in C-Suite will be migrated. So these fields exist in C Award right now.
Okay, so is it necessary for us to do a BAS Prism record if it's going to be migrated anyway?
So I think you're kind of maybe confused about
Yeah,
the AAP versus this number. The advanced acquisition planning doesn't have anything to do with those two address fields that I just talked about.
Okay. Okay. All right. I kind of get it.
Okay. So I just
Mhm.
want to clarify for you, Brenda, like the advanced acquisition planning number is
Mhm.
separate from the payment office and the invoicing office. These two fields, I mean, all of these fields will eventually make their way into a C award document, to an award, to whatever, a modification, et cetera, et cetera. The reason why we need these fields from the C request side is that a lot of times this information isn't provided on the C request document into C award. So our folks are having to try and struggle and find this information. And sometimes this information isn't even included on the award document. I know the invoicing address is, but sometimes the payment office is not. Because of fields that exist in Prism, these fields will now have to be mandatory. So previously, our invoicing office, that's already filled out in C Award, but the payment office was not made mandatory in C Award. Because of the Prism migration, this now has to be filled out.
Got it.
Awesome. Good question. And again, it doesn't have anything to do with the CBOT number. That is a separate entity. That's a separate code.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Great. So once we've filled out all of these fields, I'll just go ahead and select one from here. I'm not going to be too worried about it right now. I'll hit save, which then moves me to this screen, the summary screen, right? Let's talk about creating some funding document, or I'm sorry, creating line items and trying to fund those line items using some appropriation data. All right, so this is a topic that is highly debated, or kind of there are some variations and maybe some confusion here. So I'm going to take my time to kind of go about explaining the two options that we have for creating accounting codes, outside of a line item, and creating accounting codes inside of a line item, from the line item screen. So the first example that I'm going to provide is accessing the accounting code from the summary screen. Okay. Now notice I haven't created any line items whatsoever, but I'm going to click into accounting, and I'm going to create my accounting data here first. I'll just do this quickly. And I'll set the default percentage to 100. So I've also marked this as my default accounting code. What this means is that once I've created this accounting code and I've marked it as a default, every line item that I create after this, subsequent to the creation of this accounting code, will populate with this accounting code because it's marked as the default. You can unmark it as the default as well if you're creating a line item that isn't using this accounting code, right? So again, I'm going to give you an example of that. Let's turn this, or let's go back into this accounting code. Right here, it says set as default. This is only available in the account summary detail, right? So it's important to know what menu or where you are in C-Suite. I've accessed this accounting code from the summary screen. I'll leave it as the default for right now so that I can give you an example. All right. So I'm still at the account code summary management screen. I'm going to navigate back to my requisition summary screen. This will take me back to basically home base. Now, under sections, I'm going to create a line item by navigating to the line item screen. This will take me to requisition line item management. I will create a CLIN under actions. And here I'm at the requisition line item detail screen. I'll fill out some of this information quick. As you'll notice, some of this information has already been pre-populated from the administration page, including some of our addresses. I'm not going to set any option amount here. We'll come back to that in another example. I'm going to hit apply just so that my work is saved. And then now from the same line item detail menu or screen, on the left side of the screen, I'm going to click accounting, which is under tools. This takes me to the requisition line item account code management screen. That's a mouthful. However, I'm making a note of where I am right here, just so that you know that this is a little bit different of a screen. What you'll notice is that this accounting code that I just created from the account code summary screen has now pre-populated on this line item. If I wanted to, I could create a new line of accounting or accounting code from this line item, but it would be specific to this line item. So I'll go ahead and do that just so you can kind of see what is going to happen or what is populated on the account code summary screen. Let's do. The problem here is that the default accounting code, I set the percentage to 100. So right now this line item is overfunded. We'll come back to that and make some adjustments. So I'm going to go back to my summary screen. This is home base, if you can recall. Now I'm going to click into accounting, and we can see that we've got one line item associated with this accounting code. However, that second accounting code that I created is not part of this account code summary management because it is not an account default. It is not a default accounting code, right? So there's a difference. If you're creating an account code from this summary screen, you can set that accounting code to be applied to every line item that you create. If you're creating a line item, if you don't do this step and you're creating a line item, you would have to go into each line item and create individual accounting codes. So these are just different ways that you can choose to go about creating your requisition depending on your need. If you are using the same accounting code for 50 line items, I would definitely go in and create a default accounting code and set that as the default so that when you create your line item, it's going to, or your 50 line items, it's going to populate with that same accounting code. The difficulty sometimes with that is when you have to make a correction. Let's say I accidentally added, I put in, this should have been 2598 instead of 2599. If I change it on this account summary detail, it will no longer associate to any of the line items because any of the changes that you make on this account code summary screen do not get reflected back to existing line items. All right. It's something that's a little annoying. It's something that it can cause some issues. So just note, if you are making changes or corrections, like let's say you input something wrong on your account code, if you were making corrections to that, you would need to do that specifically inside of the line item. So I'll go ahead and make some corrections here, just so that everything is nice and uniform, and I'll make this 50%. Okay, so now everything is kind of groovy with this line item. As another example, I'll create a second line, a second accounting code from this summary screen. And I'll show you an example of how these two accounting codes can be, or these account code defaults can be kind of manipulated to change certain things or to, depending on what you need. Let's make this default percent 50 for right now. I'll create another default accounting code because you can have multiple. You can have, as many as you need. I'll make this 50% as well. And notice that both of these are marked as default. So now I'm going to go into my line items, my line item management screen, and I'm going to create a second line item. Set the quantity to, let's do 10, and I'll set the cost of each to 50. See if I'm missing anything. This is 2 ACCS funded. Now, once I navigate to accounting, you'll see that both of those accounting codes that I just marked as the account default now populate with the appropriate cost as well as the quantities for those line item, or for this line item. So we knew that the total line item cost was going to be $500. We also knew that there was a total quantity of 10. Because I set each of these accounting code defaults to 50%, it generated, or the system auto-generated a quantity that is proportional to whatever percentage you place down on that account code default. Same thing with the cost. It auto-calculated that number. I'm going to go back to summary, and I'll unmark these account codes as the default. So these are no longer going to be the default accounting codes. And I'm going to navigate into my line item screen. I'll create a new line item. And once I navigate to the accounting code within this line item itself, you'll notice that none of those accounting codes were populated or pre-populated on this line item. I'll have to manually create a line item or an accounting code within this line item if I don't have a default accounting code. Does anybody have any questions about that so far? I know we covered a lot, and there's kind of navigating through these two accounting code menus can be a little confusing. Sonji.
Yes, I have a question, Tim. I was having an issue with the default account codes in the past, and I was instructed, I called the C-Request help desk, and I was told that it would probably be easier not to include any accounting information at the accounting tab, but because of the default and that it would be like if I was doing multiple line items under one account code, that it would be sufficient to use that for that. But if it's various line items coming from different offices, it would be easier not to put an account and leave the default 0 and just put my accounting information per line items.
That's correct. Yep, that is exactly right. So in your example, if we have one accounting code that is going to be used for multiple CLINs, I would go in and create a default accounting code. If you have multiple line items that are using all different accounting codes, doing this is meaningless. It's pointless. It actually makes it more difficult because you're going to have to go in and create accounting codes for each line item anyways. So this just gives you an option to, kind of streamline certain things. Like if you know that you have all of your line items for a requisition are going to be using like the same 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 accounting codes, then go ahead and create them as the default accounting codes. You can do that. But if you have like 10 CLINs or whatever, however many CLINs, and they're all using different accounting codes, I would not create a default accounting code. Brenda.
Tim, I was under impression, I was under impression that you couldn't have 2 defaults.
Nope, that's not true.
And
you can definitely have them. Yep.
Okay, so what would be a good reason to use 2 defaults? I mean, what's the reason behind that?
So yeah, just as I just said, if you know your CLINs are going to be using 2 accounting codes, like if you have two line items and each of those line items use the same 2 or 3 or 4 accounting codes, then create them here first and then create your line items. That's going to save you some time.
So how would it know which accounting string to attach itself to if you have 2 of them?
You would set them as the default. You would set each of these as the default accounting codes. And then so in the example that I just did, I had them marked as here. I'll do it again. So,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So let me set these 2 accounting codes as the default. So this is the example that I just showed. I'm going to set both of these line items, or I'm sorry, accounting codes as default accounting codes. Okay. So now I'm going to create a line item. Let's do 2. Let's make it a round number. Let's do 10 and 50. So this is the exact same example that I did before. Testing 2 default ACCS.
Mm-hmm.
Now I go to accounting. And do you see how these have just automatically populated?
Yes.
Yeah. So again, like that's the example, that's the use case. If you have so you could do that an unlimited number of times. Like I could create, 50 of these. I could create, 100 line items, and as long as whatever default accounting code is set as default, it's going to auto populate.
Okay, so you can go into the accounting string and you can change that amount, right? Because suppose I didn't want 250 to go on each line or 1250 to go on each line. I can go in individually and I can change that cost to what I want it to be, and for both of them. Okay, so I get it. Thanks.
Yeah, so you can do that. So I just want to make sure that, Brenda, you are aware that if you're changing something like that, you should probably do that in the actual line item itself rather than the account code default menu.
Okay.
Because as I said before, the changes that you make on this account code summary management screen do not retroactively reflect any line item that you've created. So you set this is like the initial. You can set this up like as the initial startup thing, and you don't even have to set you could set the default percentage to be 0 for these. Oh, I guess you can't. So let's say I could do 10%, and I can make this 10% as well. And then now any new line item that I create is going to have 10% applied. So let's do 10 at 100. Hit apply, and I go to accounting. So now each of these accounting codes only provides 10% of the cost and the quantity.
I get it.
Okay.
I get it.
Good questions.
So you can't do 200%.
No, it wouldn't make sense to, because so let's
know.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
just said it out
want to
loud.
make sure, because people have done that before, and it's great. Any other questions? If not, we'll kind of move on. All right, sounds good.
A quick question. This is Sanji. So
Yeah.
let me say this. We don't have to use the default. It's I guess a choice.
It's a choice. It's a choice.
Because I'm saying, okay, so it's not mandatory.
It's not mandatory. It's just an option for you to use.
If you're working with, I guess, one account code that's can be used for various line items, but if it's if you have more than one line item, it would probably be easier to do it in the line item accounting, just to keep the records, the cost straight.
Yeah. And again, like, you can, when you're in the actual line item, even though these have been created from the default accounting code, you can change whatever you need to with these. All right, great. So we've just created a funded requisition. Let's give some. Let's take the time to go over some different funding scenarios. For example, prior year funding, or exercising an option. Examples like that. So for right now, I'm going to stick with this current requisition. I'll create a new. Let me actually delete all of these. So I have these two accounting codes marked as the default. I'll just stick with that for right now because it won't matter. But let's say I'm creating a line item that is there to fund and exercise an option year. So let's say I'm trying to fund and exercise option year 1. I'll give the quantity, maybe it's 5 for 25. Fund option year 1. Okay, so let me hit apply. Now, most of us, or a majority of us, oftentimes we do this. I'm going to select the option period. Okay, I know that it starts maybe June 5th, and maybe it's going to be to the next year. And done. Okay, and now I've got my funding. Okay, great. I want to make sure that these are fully funded. So I'm going to set this to 50, and I'll do 50 for the other accounting code. And a lot of times we get requisitions that look like that we have an option period here. You've applied accounting codes, and this is a big red flag. The reason why is that once you have selected an option period on this line item, the finance system will automatically know to zero out any funding that is applied to this. In essence, if you select option period, the finance system knows that, or it interprets this line item to be an unfunded, unexercised option CLIN. The reality is that when you create an option year CLIN, and when you're trying to fund an option year CLIN, it already exists on the award. So there's no reason to do this again. We already have the period of performance. We already understand that. Now, if you're changing the period of performance, you can mark this as a base period. I know it's not exactly correct to do that because it's not a base year CLIN. Or you could notate that in the administration page. But the point being is that you do not need to create an unexercised option year CLIN.
I got your well.
Can we make sure that we're all on mute if you don't have a question?
You gotta find your own.
Okay. Please make sure that you're on mute. If you do have a question, just please raise your hand or feel free to post it in the chat. So going back to this example here, if I just want to fund and exercise this option year CLIN, all right, I already know that it exists on the award. So I'm going to leave this option period blank, and I'm going to delete these period of performance end dates. Once I do that, this is good to go. Okay. I can give you an example of what this will look like. If I select this as an option period, I'll go ahead and just do that. We'll do this. I'll need to edit a few things real quick before we can actually try the commitment of that. But let's just kind of ride with this example. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that requisition. You just disable a couple things. So I'm on this requisition. I've declared this as an option period. Now, if you send this to your FCO, assuming that we've gone through the whole managed reviewers and approvers process, I'm just skipping ahead a little bit. If I click commit, all right, everything's good to go here. If I click save and post, you'll see that this amount is actually 0. Why is that? Because this option period. Right. So it's really important that if you're trying to send over, and this applies especially as we get into the next fiscal year as well, because for OS customers, we'll still be on C-Suite for the next fiscal year. I believe BIS, EDA, and NCIS, or any folks that are funded by NOAA, the NOAA offices, you'll be using Prism next fiscal year, but that's a separate topic. For OS customers, we're still going to be having to kind of, use this process. So this is a really important thing to note. If you're trying to fund and exercise an option year, like, please do not select the option period. It causes a lot of issues because it just zeroes out all the money that we have. I'll go to accounting. All right. So now as an FCO, when I go back and click commit, we can actually see the amount here, right? So for any FCOs out there, before you actually do this step, and you know that this is for a funding or for an exercise and a funding action for an option year CLIN, check the amount of the commitment first, all right? And if you see a 0 here and you know it's supposed to be funded, you need to go into your line item and check the option period. So again, just to kind of reiterate the demonstration, I'll go into my line item. I'll select this option period. I'll give it the period of performance. I'll click commit. And the system will already show me that if I commit this requisition, it's going to appear with $0. $0 on the commitment. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about that before we move on?
Hey, Tim, this is Vivian.
Yes.
I'm actually I thought I got it, but I think I'm a little confused. So you're saying with the option field, if you select the option period, the system knows that this is an unfunded action. So you're saying do not do that when you're trying to
If you-
exercise an option year.
If you are trying to exercise and fund an option year, the key word being fund, if you want to apply any funding whatsoever to that line item, you need to not have that option period.
Okay, that seems counterintuitive. Okay.
It
So
it kind of does, but at the same time, like the option period already exists on the award. So
okay.
there's no real reason to create this again. Like you're just adding steps, right? Because you have to go in here, click option, you have to give it the period of performance. All of this already exists on the CLIN, right? If you need to change the option period, like if you need to change the POP, that's one thing. Like, we would still have to mod it, but what you're doing is basically just creating a reference CLIN so that the finance system knows to commit money to that. There's like when you select option period, you're telling the system, because it's not tied to an award yet, right? The like C-suite doesn't know that this requisition is going to be tied to an award. By selecting the option period, it's basically you're telling the system, hey, create an unfunded and unexercised option CLIN. If I were to select base period, then it's different because it knows that, okay, this is a base period CLIN, it needs to be funded right now. This one makes even less sense than selecting option.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
yeah. You're right, it is counterintuitive to a certain degree. There's, the logic is a bit twisted, but that's where we've got Prism on the horizon, so things are changing. So there's kind of a reason for that. So
And
but
then you were talking about if you leave the option field blank.
Yeah.
And then what is supposed to happen if that happens? If you choose that?
Then there's no option period. It's just a line item. And
I see.
that's what you should do because you want to provide funding. The big difference here is that if you select option period, the system zeroes out all the money. So you should just leave this blank. Unless if you're creating a new set of option years, like if the award that you're trying to mod only has base +3, and now, depending on whatever it is, now it's base +5, and you need to create 2 new option years, 2 new out years, then yes, by all means, create an option period. Like create those unfunded, unexercised line items, but don't apply funding to them because they're out years, right? But if you're trying to exercise and fund something that's coming up soon, then you need to make sure that you leave this option period blank.
Okay, I may have to, when I'm ready, seek advice a little differently offline, just because in Select USA we have a $0 contract, but it does have base and option years, so it might be a little different when I record it.
Okay, I mean anything with $0 is totally fine. Like that's easy. Like if there's no money to it, so it just goes through.
Okay, great, thank you.
Rachel, I see your hand.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry, had a hard time coming off of mute. So if you were adding additional option years, what would that look like?
Yeah, so in the example, so let's say I'm adding an additional out year. So let's say that this is like option year 4 and 5. I would leave this as 0. I would say this is option year 4. I would go to my option. I would select option period because I know this is not going to be funded. Okay. Let's select something in 2027 and let's do this date as well. It looked like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. This needs to be 8. Does that make sense?
Okay. So you would just do it like, okay, yep, that makes sense. Do you have to-
the option period selection is designed for new option year CLINs. If something already exists on the contract, we don't need to select this option period.
Gotcha. And do you have to, I mean, while I understand there's no money being added to future years, right? Do you have to do anything with the accounting information?
No, so that's a good question. A lot of folks end up a lot of folks end up adding accounting, information. And I've actually, we've actually had this discussion before. But some people are super confident that whatever appropriation data that they add on those out years is going, like, this is the accounting code that we are going to use. You don't have a guarantee that in 5 years that accounting data is going to be there, or that's the project or the program code, or that you're even going to use it. So if you're creating an unexercised, unfunded line item option, don't include any appropriation data. Don't include any accounting data. Rachel, if you're off mute, I can't. I don't think we can hear you. Okay. Yeah, Rachel, if you have another question, I'm not sure if your mic is working or not, but hopefully that answered your question. If not, we'll come back to that, or you can post it in the chat and Julian will get back to you. All right, so since we're kind of at the 11 o'clock hour, I want to kind of move forward just a little bit. Let's cover some topics that do happen from time to time, especially towards the end of the fiscal year or even into the next fiscal year. Let's talk about some realignments or kind of de-obligating and obligating money. Oh, so this one actually went through. So let me go ahead and cancel this commitment. This is the wrong requisition. Apologies. Realignment example. Okay. So this is an example that I've used before. So if you've taken a training before, you may have seen this. I've got a requisition here that is requesting a de-obligation of funds from one CLIN and then an obligation of funds onto another CLIN. So I'm going to click into line item 1, and this is saying this is the CLIN receiving the money. So we want to put money, like you want to request money onto CLIN 1. And the instructions for how to do that are in the description. De-obligate $1,200 from CLIN 002 or 0002, and de-obligate money from CLIN 0003. Obligate a total of $2,400 to CLIN 0001. The previous value of the CLIN was $1,200. The new total value will be $3,600. So this is your instructions to the contract specialist for what you want to have happen. This will also need to be a funded line item. So we see here that we have FY23 funds now funding CLIN 1 for the previous costs, from $1,200 from 0002. And then another $1,200 from 0003. Now, I need to make sure that I have those two CLINs that I'm referencing somewhere on the line item, just so the contract specialist knows what we're referencing. All right. So let me navigate into 0002 because this is the first de-ob CLIN. So this is the CLIN that is being de-obligated to provide some money to CLIN 0001. The text below should provide the quantity, cost, and the accounting codes. So here's the example. De-obligate $1,200 from this accounting code. So this should be FY23 actually, and from here. So we actually see we have 2 different accounting codes that we're using to fund CLIN 1. So really CLIN 1 should have had those 2 accounting codes, which it did. So this should be 600 in this example. So this is one option that you have to type everything out from onto this description page. I know this box is a little bit small, but when you're providing a CLIN to, like, let's say you're not even trying to fund anything, you're just requesting a de-obligation. This is the text that we should see if you're doing it this way. You only put it in the description, deobligate $600 from this accounting code, and then type out the full accounting code with the, the bureau, the fiscal year, the project, the org code, et cetera, et cetera. Same thing for this one. So this one's even got the dots here. So we know that this is the project code. Here's the program code. Here's the org code, et cetera, et cetera. All right. This one doesn't require you to put any accounting codes, actually create accounting codes within the line item. You don't need to do that for a DEOB. You can do everything within the description box because there's no money here. So for some of our new users or new folks that are on this training, C-Suite does not like negative numbers. So just make sure that you leave everything as zero quantity and zero cost, like in the description, or I'm sorry, in the line item detail, and then in the description, you can just indicate the dollar value that you would like to deobligate. Let's take a look at CLIN 3. So it's kind of the same thing. However, if you wanted to add an accounting code, for example, so this one doesn't have anything in here. So deobligate $1,200 from this CLIN. If you were to not include the accounting code in the description of this box, you should probably create an accounting code as a reference in this CLIN. Still leave it as $0, but you would just want to make sure that the contract specialist knows exactly where it's coming from. Even though your DEOB CLIN might only have one accounting code, it's still just best practice just to make sure that you're able to provide that clarity or that clarification. Like this is the accounting code that we're using our money from, or that we're taking our money from. So I'm going to create a, does anybody have any questions before I move on about that? I know we kind of glossed over that, but I just want to make sure that we're okay on time. Any questions? Okay, I see Darwin.
Hey Tim, how you doing? Are you going to cover any realignment of funds as well?
Yeah, so that's actually what we're covering right now. So CLIN 1 is taking money from these CLINs. So from CLIN 2 and from CLIN 3, I'm getting $2,400, and that's reflected in these two accounting codes here. So CLIN 2 deobligated money, and then we reobligated money onto CLIN 1, and then same thing with CLIN 3. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
So CLIN 1. So in this example, if we're using current year money, like FY23 money, you would want to make sure that the line item that's receiving the money that is being obligated funds to is funded within your requisition with the appropriate amount here. And then you would just want to indicate that the money that is being taken from, the CLINs that are being deobligated from, are listed on this requisition. Okay, so next question from Biba. How you doing, Biba?
I'm fine, Tim, and you? Quick question.
Yeah.
Now, since I see you have all the CLINs already listed on there, 1, 2, and 3. Now, as a specialist, when I get the PR, it's going to show the CLINs 1, 2, and 3. But I'm also told that I should pull it from award to make my changes. Were you going to get to that, or is that's true? Correct?
That's probably something that we're going to cover tomorrow, because this is only in requisition training.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, but that's a good question. If you're taking the training tomorrow for C Award, then we'll definitely cover that. If not, then I can just kind of give you an example of that. But that's a good question, Biba.
Oh, okay. We'll hold it for tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Brenda, I see your hand up.
Oh, hi, Biba. I haven't seen you in a long time. So,
Hi,
for
Brenda.
for CLIN number 1, that $1,200 under the cost, it seems like it's new money. Could you do a summary, please?
A
Go to the
summary
summary.
of
Just hit the summary tab under system options.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, you see that $2,400? It seems like that's new money.
Yes.
OFM okay, will look at that as new money when it's already on the contract itself versus a realignment. So what I've always done in that instance that says, I would put it as a $0, but I will put in the description to move this money from here to there, so that'll be a 0. It seems like you're doing it differently.
So
Because-
we've
yeah.
always done it. So Brenda, we've always done it the way that I've been doing it. This is how, like, even before enterprise services existed, this is this is how kind of prescribed, like, our process went. I know that it's current money, and it's like, if this was prior year money, it would be all $0, right? But because Commerce doesn't use true commitment accounting, or at least the Office of the Secretary doesn't, this is how we kind of have to operate. Does that, like, because has that caused an issue before? Because, you know,
Yes, because when they do a commitment, right, it'll commit $2,400, and they'll be looking for an accounting string for that money. This would be considered new money, and in case that's been in my experience.
So,
Yeah.
but when we commit the new money and then we deob the old, like, that same money from the different CLINs, do you reconcile that on your end?
No, I've just been told by OFM to just put it in the description, so it's zeros, and then it'll be read in the description, and also noted in the notes that this is what I'm doing.
That's I think maybe the difference there is that that's for prior year funds. I would wonder who you're
know.
speaking to from OFM, because this is the process that we've just, like, kind of gone over with them as well.
Okay. Well, I will remember this, and it's been cut with current year funds too, but I'll remember this.
Okay.
The way you're doing it.
Nothing about what I'm demonstrating is different than, like, in the past, I don't know, 10 years since that I've been here.
Thank you, Tim.
Okay, sure. Good topics for discussion here. Does anybody have any questions about that? Just to kind of wrap up, you'll just want, if we're using current year money, you'll just want to make sure that you indicate or add the CLINs that are being deobligated, and then add the CLIN that is being obligated, or the, so that it reflects on the requisition, and then the line item that's getting the money, you need to make sure that is funded. So obviously, maybe there are some differences of opinion, or, like, kind of confusion with that, but a lot of what we're doing has to be done this way because we don't have true commitment accounting at Commerce. At other organizations, or in the future, when we're using the PRISM system, because it's not just it's not just the acquisition system, but the EBS as well, the finance system, all that runs through PRISM and BAS. We will have true commitment accounting, but because we don't currently in our financial system, and it's never we're done with it in a year, this is how we kind of have to operate. So we need to reflect the obligation of funds, and then the de-obligation of funds from those two other CLINs, or from however many CLINs that you're using. Okay.
Tim,
Let's talk about
a couple more questions.
Couple more questions in the chat.
Sonji, Vivian, and Darwin all have their hands raised.
Did I answer your questions previously, Sonji and Darwin?
Yeah, I just don't know how to. I was trying to take the hand down.
Oh, okay.
So,
Sorry.
yes, you covered. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. So from this, I need to turn back on a couple things just to make sure that we are all good to get this example. Make sure that we have this activated. Let's talk about our route lists, managing our reviewers and approvals. So right here in the administration page, oh, this is an older example. My apologies. Let's go to this requisition. On the funding screen here, I have a bona fide needs certifier and a fund certifying officer. Let me actually just change this so that we have a more potent example. So in our example previously, I had to go through and actually use the search function and select an FCO. Had I typed this out, you need to make sure that it is completely correct and aligned with whatever user profile name they have. So that was on the administration page, or the funding tab of the requisition administration page. When you're all ready to send this through your review and approval process, from the summary screen, I'm going to navigate down to actions and click manage reviewers / approvers. I'll click this and then I'll click add user. I can either type in the code, if you remember what the code is for that user, or you can use the search function as well. So I'll select this person. I'll click save. So this is the BFNC that I designated in the funding tab, and I'll add my FCO. And again, you can also, when you're searching for that, you can also specify the authority type, just so it's not all users within a certain office. So I'll navigate to that. I'll press search. Here's the only 3 folks within my current office that have this function. So I'll select that. So now I have a BFNC and an FCO on my review and approval list. Now, it's really important to make sure that these names or these user profiles match exactly what we have here. Because if I was typing something, like let's say I was typing this, like Julian Wilson space dash space test, and I added a space afterwards, the system would fail this local validation, even though I've selected, in essence, the same user profile. The system it can't concatenate out those spaces before or after text fields. So we would run into an issue when it comes time to review and approve this this requisition. So let me go back and make that correction real quick, and then I'll send. What I'm going to do is I'm going to release this route. So I'm going to mark this route order number 10. I'll click release. And now we see that we have a status here. It says review pending by Gary Hill. Gary, I don't know if you're on the line here, but sorry, you might get an email. But if I need to make a change, for instance, and or maybe I need to update this, maybe Gary's out and I need to add another person, a different user, a different BFNC. I'll take the same route. I'll mark this and click recall. BFNC is on. So now I have 2 routes under the same person, because what the system does is that when you recall a route, it automatically creates a duplicate route for that same person. This can be a little bit annoying. I guess the intent is that when you recall something, it's because you want to make changes to it, send it to the same person. What we found more recently is that when you recall someone, or like when you recall a route, the main reason is that that person is unavailable to approve or unavailable to perform that duty. So what I'll do is if I can't send this to Gary, I'll also need to delete that route. However, a lot of the errors that we get sometimes are from folks trying to delete route order 10. You can't delete a route order with a status column. You can only delete a route order that has a blank status. In this case, because the system automatically created a duplicate route to route order 10 and called it route 20, I'm going to delete route order 20. I cannot do anything about route order 10. If I try to, the system will give me an error. Only reviewers that have not received this action status column may be deleted. So the status column needs to be blank. But now if I were to add a new user, it might be out of order. However, you can change the route order. So I'm going to give you an example of that. I'll click add user. I'll select a different reviewer. In this case, I'll go ahead and select myself. And instead of route order 40, I'll make this, let's say 15. It's not exactly 20, but because it's higher than 30, I'm now moved up into the route order. So now I'm in this, in essence, I'll be route order 1, or the first one in line. So you can think about route lists or these managed review and approval, this managed review, requisition review and approval management screen, sorry. These routes are kind of like dominoes, right? Even if I clicked route order 30 and I clicked release, it would always start by sending it to the lowest available route order number. So it wouldn't send to Julian quite yet. It would send to route order 15 because that's the lowest number. That's first in line. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, so let's put on our BFNC hats. So I was just routed this requisition by a requisitioner. I'm now a BFNC. Now, in order to make sure, in order to have notifications, you need to change that in your profile. If you have notifications on, you'll receive an email when something is routed to you. If not, if you know it's coming, you can go into SeeRequest and navigate to your inbox. And you'll be able to see that requisition. So I can see that on this date, May 31st, at this time, I received a requisition to approve. So by clicking on this requisition, I'll be able to go into that requisition and make any sort of changes or edits that I need to, or upload different documents. So I'll give you an example of that. I'll click into this requisition. I now have full read and write access. So now I've just changed that the purpose statement. I can add line items. I can upload documents. I can do anything that I need to do while you are reviewing a document. Now, if you can actually change that, you can as a requisitioner, if you don't want your approver to have full read and write access, you can actually assign that. You can take away that privilege. For example, right here, you can mark that as view only. But in most cases, if you're sending it to your BFNC or your FCO, they should have the ability to make changes as necessary. So once I've checked everything out, this is again with my BFNC hat on, I'll go back into my inbox, and then I'll mark this box and I'll click review and approve. And I'll click approve. I won't actually do it right now. But once you click approve, it just goes on to the next chain, the next route order for the FCO to approve. Now, here's something important to note is that a lot of times issues come up where the FCO gets routed the requisition, and they automatically, once they go through the commitment process and all that, they just click save and post, and then they go into their inbox and then they approve it without even checking to see if the requisition is going to be approved by the finance system. It's a two-step process where the FCO commits the requisition, that requisition or C-suite from the OS side sends data out into the financial interface, and it's received by whatever finance system that you're using, NIST, NOAA, or Census. That finance office, the core financial system, does a validation check of all the data. It could be, the accounting codes and the specific accounting code segments, whether or not those codes have been set up, whether or not there's enough money on those codes. And if it doesn't, if anything fails, it'll send back an error. So for example, as we can see here, this requisition commitment was rejected. So under account summary, you'll be able to see commitment rejected. Please check. And if I go to view status under financial and I click the message, it'll show me exactly what the error was. Line item 0001, MDL2, org code must be a number. So I go in here. I might have already corrected this, but just so we can see, I can see here that this org code is actually missing a character. All right. So if I was if I was an FCO and I already approved it, that means that I approved a requisition that got rejected by finance. So as an FCO, you need to make sure that you wait for the commitment to come back as approved before you approve it yourself. Your approval doesn't mean that this requisition, that this commitment is going to get automatically approved by the finance system. All right. We can do our due diligence and make sure that we're checking to see if certain things are, like if this line item or this accounting code, it looks like this is an FY21 accounting code, whatever, maybe some of these segments are wrong. Whatever we need to do, you can do your due diligence and make sure that these are all correct as well. But sometimes, like, let's say, for example, we've established like a new program or a project code and it just hasn't been activated in the finance system quite yet. That would be an example of an error that you would receive. Now, that error would need to be corrected first before the commitment would be approved on our side. But as an FCO, you would have no way to know of knowing that until you waited for the approval or the rejection to come through from the finance system. Hopefully that makes sense. So my recommendation really is just for all FCOs, when you commit something, don't actually go in and approve it in your inbox in C-Suite until you see an approved message on this commitment. All right. To refresh the page, you can just click summary over and over until this message changes. If something gets stuck or, if it's been in sent awaiting response mode for like, over 10 minutes, that means probably there's some sort of issue with the finance system or something like that. That tends to happen over the course of the end of the fiscal year. But case in point, do not approve a requisition until the commitment has been approved from the finance system. I think I saw some hands, but does anybody have any questions about that?
Hey, Tim, real quick, can you go over the view status error message, because we couldn't see the pop-up that came up.
Oh, okay. So under financial transaction, if I click this message, can you see this pop up or no?
No, we can't see the.
Okay.
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay, so if you see this pop up, I navigated to view status, which is under the financial tab. Everybody has this option. Everybody has this menu option to do so. You'll see the status message on the financial transaction. So this is the type of financial transaction. This is the status. It says rejected, please check. And usually there will be a message with the blue hyperlink. Once you click that, this pop-up window will appear. It will provide you a transaction message. This one seems to be a little bit more clear, more understandable. Sometimes the error messages get so convoluted and it's honestly just more like code or text or syntax and stuff like that, just kind of back end verbiage. What you should do is create an acquisition system support ticket, and Julian and I will assist you with that. Sometimes you can try and fix it on your own. For example, like this one seems pretty straightforward. But a lot of times if you're confused or, I don't know what this means, just go ahead and create a ticket and we'll take care of that. Hopefully that answers the question. Did anybody have any questions about that? I'd like to try and, move towards the end of the year shutdown procedures and dates, because we are kind of approaching the 1.5 hour mark. Any questions? Okay. So let's talk about, so we covered Prism migration as well. Let's talk about some of our end of year shutdown dates. Now, This kind of relates back to these PR submission dates a little bit. However, I'll just kind of give you a brief rundown, or at least talk about what we can expect. So this is actually kind of in the training that we're having tomorrow for our ESA folks. Let me see where I put this. Oh my, did I not? Okay, give me 1 second. Let me pull this one up. So if you're new to Commerce and you're new to kind of the end of the year shutdown procedures, we don't go all the way up to September 30th at midnight, like some other organizations or agencies might do. There's a bit of a kind of a staggered shutdown procedure, and this is so that these finance systems can kind of reconcile all of the past year, all the past fiscal years, like invoicing and all the other financial data and things that they need to kind of take care of before the books close. So the biggest change here is for NOAA, because NOAA is the first bureau to move into the new PRISM system. Their dates are tentative. We can plan right now for September 26th at 5 p.m. But if you are a NOAA customer, you probably have already received information and guidance based on what you need to do, and the kind of the timeline for submitting work in, because the finance system will be shut down a little bit earlier, or because a lot of things are in play with NOAA. Things are going to have to be a little bit different right now this year, because it's not just the acquisition system that's moving, it's the finance system, which is a really, really large undertaking. We can plan for September 26th at 5 p.m. This is for, for awards and mods and obligations to kind of come through. I actually think that this date is going to move up by quite a bit. So for NIST funded customers, typically what happens, and so just to kind of reiterate, August 11th is the PR cutoff date. However, enterprise services will still process PRs, but it's going to be at a first come, first served basis after August 11th. So between August 11th and September 22nd, that's enterprise services window to process all those actions, new awards, new mods, de-obligations, closeouts, that kind of thing. At 6 a.m. on the 22nd, TIBCO, which is the financial interface, will be shut off, which means that if we try to submit anything else, that includes purchase request commitments, like from requisitions, any mod obligations, or anything that requires a financial transaction, it's just going to sit stuck. It's going to be stuck in the finance system, and it's not going to move. Okay, so it's really important that we make sure we avoid that as much as possible, because if we have like 100 things, 100 actions sitting in the finance system, when it comes back online on the 29th at 6 a.m., the likelihood to get all of those things through is going to be very low. And this period from September 29th, as effectively the last day of the fiscal year for us operationally, this is reserved for any emergency awards, any emergency actions. Obviously, there are some mod obligations that kind of pop up here and there, but we are trying to reserve this date, this September 29th date, for any emergency action. So if you're submitting something for like a deob or like to recoup funds and then re-obligate funds, unless it's like a special case, it's probably not going to go through. I would just recommend, if you know that something's coming and it's going to be a little bit late in between this, please let us know as soon as possible. We need to be aiming to end all of our operational stuff, all of our obligations, all of our new awards, new actions, all of that needs to be finished by September 22nd for NIST financed offices. And for census, the date that they gave me was September 28th at 5 p.m. I actually think that this will be moved up as well. So we should try to plan, for as early as possible. I would say no later than mid-September. Once that's done, we're not going to be able to process any new actions until the interface comes back up in early October. It's usually the first first week, maybe sometimes early second week of October. And that'll be the end of FY23. Any questions about that? I know that's kind of a lot to digest, a lot of dates and a lot of numbers. Any questions about the end of the year processes? Great. Okay. I will open up the floor to any open discussion, any questions, anything that we would like to have covered again. Or anything that you'd like me to cover, that we didn't touch. Okay, Rachel, I see your hand.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so I have a process question for you. So with a requisition, if we have a requisition that we're working on, and we are exercising the second option year, are you required to put anything in there about the 2 other option years that remain? So for example, like I did hear what you said, we didn't need to put the accounting information, but do we need to include anything about the other option years? Because the current direction we have is to just like paste that information in there. And so I just was trying to get an understanding as to if that's
Gotcha.
a requirement or how that works.
So if you're only funding an exercise, so are you funding option year 2? Like, are you funding that?
Correct.
Clin?
Correct.
You actually do need to put your accounting data in. I don't know
For
if
that one, yes. No.
Yes.
For that one, I understand. But like, so for example, we're funding option year 2. So we have all the accounting information in there. We have the dollar amounts, but we were just told to just kind of copy and paste the information about option year 3 and option year 4 in there. We don't have dollar amounts tied to them. But do we have to do that? I was just trying to understand.
I'm not sure why, if you're not doing anything with those other option years, then why even include them on the requisition?
Okay, I just wanted to understand. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So that's not guidance that I would have given, or anybody from Enterprise Services would have given. At least I would hope not. Just because if you're not trying to modify those option years, there's you can remove them, you can delete them. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. And if you have another question, please just feel free. Let's see, Mary, you're next.
Yes. Could you just revisit that addresses tab
Yes.
for me, please? I had a question with the new order. So payment office. I want to understand, get a better understanding of the payment office.
Yeah.
So who is that? So purchase for, I know it's my organization, delivery to is my organization. Invoicing office, I know that NIST receives our invoices, so I just want to verify who the payment office would be.
Sure. So let me go to a current award here. It looks like actually the payment office and the invoicing office are oftentimes the same address. Because this is just the office. So I'm sorry, I may have had it backwards, but the payment office, it looks like this is so like NIST accounts payable. This is who the office that's paying, and then the invoicing office is who you would send the invoices to. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think for my case, it would be NIST for both of those.
Great. Then
thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Yep. No problem. Okay. Patricia Woodbury, I think I see you next. Oh, no. I think it was Brenda, did you have your hand up?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, the question I have is, will you be going over reporting? And the reason why I'm asking is, a lot of times I have to, ask for a copy of the contract if I did not receive it. And one of the other cores demonstrated where he was able to get any contract that he had done in the past. And I believe that's what was one of the reporting, and I think that's a feature that I need.
Okay, so Brenda, if you are a core, you should have that access. It's called procurement search, and you should actually have access to C Award as well. You'll need to click into the C Award subsystem and then click procurement search. Being able to search for any of those would be through procurement search.
I've never been in C Awards, actually.
Okay.
Uh,
You should check
I
your
don't.
user profile and just make sure that you have that down here.
I don't.
Okay.
I don't.
So what we'll do is that maybe we can take this offline and we can schedule a
Yeah.
session. I'll update your account just to make sure that you do have that. Let me just make sure that you're good here. And you are a core, correct? Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So you have it now.
Yay. Do I need any reports? Because the question is, when will you be going over reports, or is there a session that I can go in and review in enterprise services and training?
So I wasn't planning on doing reports right now. I think we are kind of short on time. I think if you would like to request just an ad hoc session where we can go over reports, please just feel free to let us know, create a ticket, and then we'll get with you whenever your availability fits.
Thanks, Tim.
Great. Patricia, you're next on my list.
Yes, hi everybody. My question has to go with the creating the requisition back to that page with the delivery date. That's a required field.
Yeah.
Could you just give some clarity on the actual date that should be, only because we have sometimes purchases that may be one-time purchases, so the delivery date may be different, as opposed to dealing with a contract that may have base plus 4 years. So when you're making any changes or modifications, what does the actual delivery date represent? What is it, what date should be in there, especially if you're dealing with contracts, base plus 4, base plus 3, whatever. What is the delivery date?
So yeah, that's a good question. I mean, and that comes from your office and into ours. So I guess my question would be, what do you need the delivery date to be? Is it 30 days out from this order, or is it, when do the supplies need to be delivered? Yeah, if there's like a period of performance date or something like that, it could be the start of the period of performance. But yeah, that's not something that we don't input that information. Like, we receive that information from the requisition.
I got you. The fact that you made I asked the question about the references, like if a one-time purchase, the delivery date could be like your expected date that this go through, or the modification to a contract with more than 1 year. That explains it. Thank you very much.
Great. Yeah. Sounds good. Okay. Ronald, you are next on my list.
Hi, thank you. So I've only been with Commerce since the 8th. I came from the VA, so this is all brand new to me. But I did do a request, and I just wanted to go back and see the routing again. And prior to that, I just want to confirm. So I'm with BIS, and then I believe BIS falls with NOAA. So it sounds like next year we'll be moving to PRISM. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So yeah, can I see the routing again, please?
Yeah. What would you like to see with the routing?
So I've created the request. So to me, I'd like to go ahead and push this, and I thought it was through the to the routing to go through the finance systems.
Gotcha. Yeah. So at the base level, the requirement from the department is that your requirement needs to be reviewed by your bona fide needs certifying person, whoever is certifying the bona fide need, and then your fund certifying officer. So at the bare minimum, those two folks need to be on your requisition. That is a process, or those designees are controlled by your office. Enterprise Services or any acquisition office does not dictate who you send those that requisition to. All right. So to kind of recap again, when you're at your requisition administration page, you go to your funding tab, this is the first place where you designate your BFNC and your FCO. If this person is unavailable to do that, you also do need to make that change here, because I think if you recall, I did that example where I had to recall that person and then add a new user. You'll want to make sure that you update that here in the funding tab. This is the first place where you designate those people. So on your manage reviewers and approvers screen, this is where you're going to actually add them to. This is where you're going to add them to the list to push it to their inbox, for example. So in this review and approval management screen, I'll click add user. I can either search for the person or type in their code. I'll click select. This is the receiving order. So by default, it's set to 10. This is the first person on the list. You could also make this 1 if you wanted to. I'll click save. And so now I have one person on my route list. I'll add my second user, which is going to be my FCO, my fund certifying officer, and I'll click save here. Now they've been added to my route list. I haven't released it to them yet. They haven't received the document. And now I'll click release. And so this sends this document into this user's inbox in C-Suite. Again, I just want to reiterate, every organization and every office has a different review process. So, depending on what that is, you could have 5, 10, 15 people review it even before it gets sent to the bona fide needs certifier. So hopefully that answers your question, Ronald. If not, please just let me know.
No, it does. Thank you very much. And I appreciate it being reported.
Great. Okay, I think I see some new hands. Darwin, did you raise your hand again?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yes, I did. I just want to let Ronald know if he's with BIS, I can help him out with the routing information or any BIS attendees today. If they can shoot me an email, I can help them out with the routing and stuff like that.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Darwin.
Thank you, Darwin.
I do see some hands up. I'm not sure if those were just from previous questions, but I'm just going to go down. Sonji, are you okay? Did you have another question?
No, I don't have another question.
Okay, great. Brenda, are you all right?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, I'm okay. Let me unraise my hand.
Okay. Yeah, okay, so Patricia, okay. So the next person, Mickey, you're next on the list. If you're talking, Mickey, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm a new call, and I just curious that do I need to get a C award for this? I got a C request, but I saw you guys have a C award. Do I need to have that access?
Yes, and if you don't have access to C award, I will add that to your profile.
Okay, I will reach back to you. Okay.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go through some questions in the chat, and I believe Julian's been. So, okay, do I need C award training as well? So Vivian, if you are a core and you receive and you have C award as part of your access, you do not need training for C award. We can go over maybe just ad hoc if you have time, just like kind of the search functions. I can give you just a demonstration of that right now. So I'm in C request. I find in the other systems menu option on the home screen, I click C award. The menu functions do change a little bit. You will probably only have access to reports and searches. So if you need to find your specific award, you'll use procurement search, and then you'll type in whatever, 1331, L5, 21, F, et cetera, et cetera. That's the search function that you would use. And then We have a little bit of time, but we can go through standard reports, and you can, go through the different reports here. You can define a date range. You can do award obligation. You can see how much money. Sometimes these reports don't really tell you the whole picture. We do have some, custom and custom BERT reports that we've used in the past. So if you're trying to find some information, let us know what type of report that you're looking for, and maybe we can help you out, and maybe we can point you in the right direction for you to be able to run that. So that's the C award question from Vivian. Rachel, if you're changing the core for a contract, you need to include the request to change the core. Section of the requisition. Since you are submitting, a core change would have to be done through a modification. So yes, I would suggest, including that in the for the purpose statement. Rachel.
Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to fix that, but then you were answering it. So I do understand, just to clarify, I guess I did understand it was supposed to go in the purpose section. I was just curious, did it go anywhere else within the document? Like, does it need to further be identified in like the plan section? I just didn't know if there was anywhere else other than purpose that it should be.
The only other place that I would put that new core would be in the recommended primary core.
Gotcha.
Right
Yep.
Here.
Yep. Okay, we've got them in both of those places. So just
Great.
confirming. Thank you.
Sounds good. All right, we've got about 5 minutes left. Lots of really great discussion. I'm glad we had enough time to kind of field all these questions. Let's see. Mark, I am a core. Can I have a C award? Yes, you will have that shortly. We'll make sure that you have that added to your profile. Brenda.
Tim, I'm sorry, I followed you when we were doing the C dot request, trying to pull up that particular contract. It doesn't give you, it gives you the contract number, but you cannot see the contract itself. I can give you one for instance, but you might have different privileges.
Okay.
Okay, it is, okay, hold on, let me just,
So
I'll tell you what.
Yeah, it might be because you so when you're trying to search for it, does it only give you like you search for it and you click on it and it gives you a pop-up window?
No, it gives me the contract. I'm going to give you like 1331.
Well, I guess Brenda, because of our access, I'll be able to see it perfectly.
Yeah.
So I think
I just going to need training. Yeah.
Yeah, let's take this offline, and then we can kind of work on making sure that you have what you need and what you we also want to make sure that you are able to see only what you need and
only
not
what
everything
I need.
Exactly.
That is correct. That is correct. I just want to see be able to download my contract, like that. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'll have to check on that just to see if the permissions that we provide you're able to download the copy of the contract. Otherwise,
Yes.
I mean, you might have to you might have to work with your contracting officer to get that.
And that's I seen a core do that, and he downloaded a contract because it was being assigned to me, and he gave it to me. So I know it's possible. I just don't have the permissions yet. So if you can research, I'll send you an email. Okay.
Yeah, because there's a couple places where you could probably download that from. If they include it as a support document, you might be able to download it that way. But I'm not sure that if you have access as a contract, like if you're not a contract specialist, but you're a core, I don't know that you'd have the access in the system to be able to download anything. I'm also not sure about that. So let me check before I give you a definitive
I'll
answer.
give you the name of the person. Okay. In an email. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Great.
This is great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It looks like we are about at time, so I don't want to hold anybody over. Again, this training will be posted probably in a couple weeks on the Enterprise Services portal. We will try and make sure that folks who attended this session but were unable to register for the CLC session are added to the CLC session to get your CLPs. And if you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to shoot us an email. Create a service ticket within Enterprise Services portal, and we'll try and answer your question as soon as possible. So thanks again for everybody who attended. Hope you have a great day.
Thank you.